Welcome to another episode on our podcast series here at Tomiczek Financial Team. We're happy and we're excited because we've got a guest in studio with us, and we're going to be talking about the real estate market, and that's a big topic in Canada. We often hear about real estate and we might not know exactly what to do. So we're happy to have Jaden with us today. Welcome and thanks for being here.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. It's a very important topic, so I'm glad that you guys asked me to come on to discuss it.
We're glad to have expert advice always, so we appreciate you taking the time to be here.
Of course.
And tell us a little bit about yourself and how we can get to know you.
For sure. So like you said, my name is Jaden Kennedy. I have had my license for 3.5 years now. I am a real estate broker. Born and raised in the GTA, went to school in California on a volleyball scholarship, played professionally overseas for a bit, came home, started adulting. The job I was doing, I didn't really feel like I was fulfilling my purpose, especially because I studied psychology and sociology. So I decided to get into real estate specifically to empower minorities and really enable them to learn about how to acquire real estate, because other people have people in their households who can teach them how to invest money and what they need to do in order to own. So I want to help people who don't have those people in their households, and the way that I do that is through making real estate content online that's educational and easily digestible.
And you say you studied psychology in the past. I think that is essential in terms of buying a home. It's a long-term commitment you have to make. So having the right mindset getting into that type of commitment is important. So I say that's an added benefit to your market.
Right, 100%. And the thing is, like, I'm a realtor, but I joke I'm a therapist, I'm a psychologist, I'm a best, like everything, right? So I think where psychology really helps me in the industry is actually when it comes to negotiating, because I can get a good idea of if someone is bluffing or not on the other side of the table, and it really enables me to get the best results for my clients.
So don't play poker with you.
Don't try to play poker with me, no.
So, it's a highly competitive market. As we said in the introduction, Canada, we talk about real estate, we talk about a big market. So in terms of you getting into this market, what sets you apart from others who are already here?
I would say that my background, just having been a professional athlete, it's really ingrained in me to work very hard and to outwork the competition. So I'm always staying on top of market trends and once again trying to provide value. I think a lot of realtors get into the industry to put, flashy things online to make themselves look rich, etc. But I'm really rooted in community. So I think that my why, which is supporting, like I said, people who look like me and other minorities get in, is what makes me different. And then I'm also providing value for free. If you go on my social media, I tell you from A to Z how to get into real estate. On top of that, I am a younger realtor who brings a different twist on real estate, because a lot of these established realtors, they don't leverage social media to get their clients the most eyes possible. I can go to someone and say, hey, based off of my social media presence and the strategies that I have, I can get you at least 50,000 views on your property. And that's a value proposition that many people cannot bring. Additionally, I'm a real estate investor myself. So not only am I educating people on how to purchase properties, I'm also purchasing properties and leveraging that experience to really understand the emotions that my clients are going through and to lead by example.
Well, I think there are numerous points that you could pick out there, and that's quite impressive.
Thank you.
And you said you've been in the market for just about 3.5 years, and to be able to do that so quickly and understand the needs, and I think, as you said, having that background in psychology and also being an athlete, it really pushes you to be the best as you can be and to get into that market at such an impressive portfolio already. That's quite amazing.
Thank you. And I will say one thing that also makes me different is I do a lot of stuff that's community based. So I go to a lot of elementary schools, high schools, sports teams, etc. to teach the youth, because they are our future, and a lot of them don't know to ask these questions to their parents so young. And because house prices are going so high so quickly, they need to learn at a younger age what a credit card is, a debit card, all of those things, because I want to ensure that they have a solid financial foundation, because unfortunately our education system it's not really teaching the kids right now what they need to know when it comes to adulting. So I just really help bridge that gap. So a lot of the business that I get to is from me speaking at churches, etc., and really empowering people to understand what it takes to get into real estate.
And you say, you're targeting the younger community, you're targeting people that align with your values as well.
Yeah.
You know, and starting young is very, very important.
Yes.
And having that knowledge can really prepare you for that long commitment that you have to make.
100%.
So, speaking about that commitment now, I want to get into the market. I want to be able to probably acquire my very first home in Canada.
Amazing.
We know we have a lot of people who come here through international students, immigration, whatever purpose it is. They'll come and they want to acquire home because it's something that, you know, can set you really well for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
So to make that first buy.
100%. So there's a few things. The main things when it comes to purchasing a property is, number one, we're going to need to have down payment funds, right? We're also going to need to get pre-approved. And in order to get pre-approved, we're going to have to show history of potentially like employment, tax returns, etc. So I would say that those are the two main things, but there's a lot of variables to consider when doing that. So I do work with actually a lot of immigrants, and some things that they should note is that, number one, if we're getting gifted funds from overseas, it needs to be trackable, and it needs to be in our bank accounts for at least 90 days because the bank wants to make sure that the money is legitimate. Other things that you want to make sure is, if you are bringing money, like in general, to open a bank account as soon as possible, to start opening certain credit options as soon as possible, just to show that you are able to sort of pay money back. So from an immigrant perspective, those are the main things that you really want to focus on, is creating a foundation and being able to prove to lenders in Canada that you'll be able to sort of pay the money back. But typically for the amount of cash that you're going to need in order to purchase a property, let's say the house, most houses are more than $500,000 now, but if you're buying a $500,000 house, you're going to need 5% for your down payment minimum, so that's $25,000, and then you're going to need an additional 1.5 to 3% of the purchase price for closing costs, and this is in cash. So a lot of times first-time home buyers come to me and they say, hey, I want to purchase a property, I have my $25,000, and I say, okay, that's great, but do we have money for lawyer fees? Do we have money for land transfer tax? Because the government likes to take their fair share out of that. So those are sort of the main things that I would say. If you are going to be purchasing a property, you also realistically want 2 years worth of tax returns. Like I said, proof of where your down payment funds came from, your credit report. They're going to want to make sure that your credit's in good standing, typically 680 or higher, if you want to get access to the best lenders and the best rates. And then they're going to want like pay stubs, letters of employment, etc.
So you said 680 is like a benchmark for you?
680 is the benchmark, yes.
And you said, you said pre-approval and also your down payment, and be able to trace that. It's two of the most important things that you want to be able to do and have. So let's say you've got those things, and I know you mentioned the 1 to 3% extra that you might have to think. Because a lot of times we talk about we're working towards our down payment, but we don't work towards those other fees as well. So that's important. And a lot of times too, you get into the market and you start to talk with your realtor, and they don't mention those.
100%.
So to have people, to work with people who can be transparent like that, and you know what you're preparing for at the end of the road.
Exactly. And I do also on that point want to just discuss the difference between a deposit and a down payment. So when you go to purchase a property, you're going to need a down payment, and that's going to be attached to your pre-approval. Sum of cash, down payment, pre-approval. Now, there's another sum of cash you're going to need, which is a deposit, and that's going to be along with your offer. So you are going to need your down payment in full by the time you go to move into the property. So on closing, your deposit you need within 24 hours of your offer being accepted. So sometimes people are not aware of the fact that you need a deposit within 24 hours of offer acceptance. So they say, yeah, I have, X amount of money in my RRSPs, but the thing is we need to be able to access those funds within 24 hours of your offer being accepted. So a standard deposit that looks strong is going to be 5% of the purchase price, but you have to keep in mind the deposit comes from the down payment. They're not two different entities. So say you have $50,000 to put towards the house, your down payment is, your deposit, is $30,000. That $30,000 will be taken from the down payment, and you would just have a remaining $20,000. Exactly.
That's also very, very important, because that can be complicated for especially first-time home buyers who are not aware, and even of the real estate market in Canada. So that's an important thing to clarify.
Very important. Because, I just want to add on to that. The thing is, the implications of not giving your deposit within 24 hours is you losing out on that property and you potentially getting sued by the seller. So you want to make sure that you have those funds in your account liquid, so within 24 hours, because you want to avoid potentially getting sued and losing your deposit.
Well, I'm so glad that you're here, so I can avoid that.
Yes, for sure.
So, having those things, preparation, buying your first home, and of course, we're going to get into specifically in our next episode. We're going to have you back because definitely we want to know more, and we have so much limited time here. But I just want you to comment on the recently announced rates. So it was like a couple days ago, we announced that, not we, not the Bank of Canada. The Bank of Canada announced that rates fell by 25 basis points. So what does that mean for the real estate market?
So one thing I just want to say in general, because it's an educational podcast, a lot of people, when they think interest rates, they only associate it with housing. I want people to understand these interest rates are impacting student loans, money from the bank, etc. It's not just housing. But when it comes specifically to housing, interest rates and house prices sort of have an inverse correlation. So when interest rates go down, home prices tend to go up. I typically see a change in the market, I'd say between 2 to 4 weeks post change. So I do expect house prices to go up. What I am noticing though is an influx in inventory right now. So if we have more inventory and lower rates, that's great. More people are going to be buying. But until we actually see a deficit in terms of the amount of inventory we have, it won't become a true buyer's market. So the market's not going to heat up like crazy. But one of the key takeaways to take from that announcement is that they were essentially stating they're going to be doing more rate drops, right? So the faster that rates drop, the more people are going to start to get into the market. And we have, the stress test, which basically when you go to get pre-approved, they qualify you at a higher rate just to make sure that you can afford the property if rates do go up. What happens is when interest rates go down, the stress test goes down. So there's a lot of people who are currently on the sidelines because they couldn't qualify because of the stress test, but this 25 basis points could make a difference. I would say once we see like 75 to 1, that's when we're really going to start to see a lot of change in the market. But I do project the market to start heating up sooner as opposed to later.
Okay, and I guess we can only go downwards from here in terms of the rates. And the impact of this announcement, as you said, we're going to see this probably in the next month or 2 months' time. And then maybe that's when they're going to announce another rate cut. And so you think now is probably the better time to get in because you're going to have that stress test with a higher rate. And probably when you get, so you're pretty much going to be comfortable at that time.
Yes, I would say sooner as opposed to later, because when you go to purchase a property, if you're not against too much competition, you can say, hey, I want to put conditions in. This means I want to be able to back out of the deal if I can't get confirmation of certain things. For example, I want a home inspection. If I don't like the results of the home inspection, I can back out of the deal and get my deposit back. The issue is when you're going up against 4 other people, 5, 6, 7, during COVID, sometimes 50, 60 other people, the chances of you being able to put those protections in diminishes, right? So the majority of my buyers have actually gotten them into the market earlier this year, and now because I know that once the rates start to go down, sure, your monthly payment might be a bit lower, but the overall amount you're paying is higher, therefore the principal of your mortgage is also higher. So I definitely recommend, if you can get in, now is better than later. And the one caveat with them bringing rates down is we sort of saw it during COVID with they just started reducing. They want to keep a pulse on how quickly they reduce, because if it impacts the housing market too much, then I could foresee them pausing and then potentially even going back up, which is what we don't want. Like, I am on variable with one of my properties, and it has just been the worst experience ever. So now I can, at least I have one gas tank worth of extra money a month right now.
And I think, and that's also important, variable rates, fixed rates.
Yes.
Maybe we'll get into that in the next one with the more technicalities of mortgages. But based on all that we're saying here, and based on your outlook of the market, do you think it's better now for us to be renters or buyers, homeowners?
Honestly, it really depends. Like, people come to me saying, hey, I want to buy a house, and then I look at their financial situation and I say, honestly, it makes more sense to rent right now. An example where renting might make more sense is if you've been in a property and you're paying like half of what your monthly mortgage payments would look like. If you're someone who can't afford to double what your housing expenses are on a monthly basis, then renting might be the best option for you. Ideally, house prices, historically go up, so it will become a bit harder to purchase because the home prices are going to be be higher, which means you're going to need more money to save.
Right.
However, if you're in a position where your rental rate is quite low, take the difference between what your monthly mortgage payment would be and put that to the side.
Yeah.
Practice not having access to that money, and then if you feel comfortable with, how your living situation is, then that's when it might make more sense. So I'm always, the majority of the time, pro ownership,
Yeah.
but it depends on the situation. If the math is making sense, 100% go into ownership. But I have a lot of people too, it's getting a little technical here, but condos. People want to purchase condos, which is great. If you see a condo in the GTA that's selling between $3 to $4, maybe $500,000, a lot of the time they're actually older condos that have higher monthly condo fees. So someone might be able to purchase a condo for $350,000, but their monthly condo fee is $1,500 on top of their monthly mortgage. So to me, it doesn't make the most sense, especially if their plan is to purchase this property and move into a bigger property down the line, because the older the building gets, the higher the condo fees become, therefore the less that your prospective buyers are going to qualify for, right? So if you can own, I recommend owning, but if it's going to put you in a situation where you become house poor or where your quality of living is going to go down, then I would recommend renting and connecting with a financial professional to come up with a plan to at least save money faster than the rate of inflation.
Right.
Yeah.
So, if there is any doubt of why you might want to work with a real estate professional, I think you've answered most of those questions. Like those, looking out for those high maintenance fees and those hidden fees, you might not know as just getting into the market as a first time buyer, and you might not know of all of these things that might be there. So having the expert, you can avoid these things.
100%. I will say there's, I want to say like around 70,000 realtors in the GTA right now, but 90% of them do between like 1 to 3 deals a year. So it's not only working with a professional, it's working with a professional who will highlight these things, because there's a lot of people who have their licenses who wouldn't highlight those types of things. Additionally, I do see that a lot of people right now are trying to purchase properties without realtors, but the issue with that too is realtors have insurance. In the event that something happens with your deposit or there's an error or omission, we can cover that, whereas if you are working on your own, you might not have that same protection.
So, Jaden, we're sorry that we have to go, but we're out of time today. Thank you so much for coming, and next week I hope that you're going to be able to share more with us as well. But thank you so much for coming on today.
Of course, thank you for having me. It was great.
All right, that has brought us to the end of our episode here with Jaden today. But as we promised, we're going to have her back next week. She's going to tell us a whole lot more. So join us, and remember to like, subscribe, hit that bell icon. So anytime we post a video on YouTube, you can be notified of it. Thank you, and this has been another podcast video brought to you by the good folks at Tomiczek Financial Team.